Welcome to the Vault of Doom podcast. I'm your host, Mickey Gemini. This is the famous authors and literary classics episode. I'm going to be talking about some of the famous authors and literary classics therein. That's got me pretty stoked and pumped about this, as I've pre-written the narrative ahead of time, and then getting into this chunky monkey right here to fucking just bite down on and see what we can get into, where I think I shared a little bit of sentimental value that this episode has to me, or at least what's inside the episode. The episode itself I could care less about, but it's what's inside that counts. As for these authors here, I'm going to give a quick introduction, and that is literally just saying I'm limited to 3. As for all of the famous authors and literary classics that I could talk about on an episode of the show, well, limiting it down to 3 makes it very easily digestible for me. And you know, there's these literary classics aren't just written by these authors. These are just where I'm discussing the 3 authors and then 3 totally separate titles that aren't even written by these authors at all. So it's gonna be a good one, guys, and it looks like I even pre-wrote what songs I wanted on this too. Cool. So I'll go ahead and feature some songs of mine that I've recently released. I've also recently released some other stuff from a different project and some stuff from the same project. All this swarm of music that's spouting out of me right now is just coming at a super fast rush. I can't calm down enough. I even if I tried to calm down, I wouldn't be able to calm down enough to actually grasp how much music is really coming out, and in a total clusterfuck right now. I mean, it's madhouse, absolute fucking madhouse in the Vault of Doom, folks. And I hope you've been enjoying all the shows that I've been putting out. I have been seeing how long the average is that you watch the episodes. I like the views. I like that I'm getting decent views and building a following, getting subscribers, but there's a little bit of analytics that'll tell the tale for me that nobody's actually watching these videos. It's being ran for 1 minute and 50 seconds average on each video. So I'm literally broadcasting to the void here. I could use your support by checking out the content that I make, helping keep the show going and supporting it, sending money on Cash App, subscribing to the channel. All these things help me continue pushing out original and handcrafted content that I'm doing. That's literally what this is, and it's just literal me speaking into the abyss, and it's literal me handcrafting each one of these episodes, where I'm coming up with a lot of sentimental stuff like what's in this episode. I'm coming up with a lot of original, everything's original, and just everything's interesting to me and important to me. Whatever, eventually something will catch on. As for the content of this episode, we're going to be talking about Henry David Thoreau, Bram Stoker, Joseph Campbell, and the titles of the Nibelungenlied, the Mabinogion, and Tristram and Isolde, as this is what I do when I'm not recording a podcast, writing down and preparing for a podcast, or listening to my music, writing my music, or recording my music, or sharing my music. When I'm not doing this podcast and music, though it's very time consuming, I'm actually reading these books, and I'm reading these authors, the work that these authors make, and I'm watching the movies that I'm sharing the movie reviews on. And other than that, I don't think there's really anything else, quite honestly. So this is going to be really good when all this finally catches on. Really good. I'll just start with the introduction here that I wrote down. Rehashing what videos I have published that cover the subject I've added in as much overly detailed a narrative into this episode of my show in hopes that moving forward with future audiobooks and book reviews, this show and the content therein remains interesting. These are all big, well-known authors and titles, so it's not a big deal to say how I feel about them, as it adds to the ambiance and mystique of the experience. However, I don't want to share that, as I'm uncomfortable doing so, thus I won't. Not able to overcome the awareness of these all being surface level, however, the content of this episode is very near and dear to me. In a way, I'm sort of parting with this group of things I've enjoyed for quite some time now. You know what to do if you enjoyed, and that is like, share, subscribe, comment. Support it by donating on the cash tag right there. And also check out the link tree where all the other channels on social media profiles are. Well, reintroduction. I am Mickey Gemini. This is the Vault of Doom podcast. You can also listen to the show here on Spotify. You can check out some of the links to the Lion's Den Productions audiobooks at the Lion's Den Productions official YouTube channel on the link in the description, as well as on screen if you're watching it on screen. As for the artist spotlight featured art, that hasn't been added yet, so it'll be something that I'll only be able to mention on the introduction. But this is going to be a free-for-all, freestyle, straight off the tip of my dome talk about the authors here. Henry David Thoreau wrote Walden. Okay, this is a book I've actually found about through the third author in this category, Joseph Campbell. And Joseph Campbell is probably where I'll start. Now that we have a few decades into the work of him being the masks of God, the many faces of the hero, etc., etc., I think it's a quadrilogy or a trilogy, a very thick volume each, that states just all the connections that can be made between all theology and mythology. So he references connections to, I've literally drawn connections in my brain to where certain deities are the same as other deities in different religions, and how it's focused on the heroes and on the more ameliorative side of things. So it's a little bit irrelevant to the show and a little bit irrelevant to the themes, but that's okay. There's plenty of gory stories for you guys to check out here on this show. And so, with this author being somebody that's very well renowned as a philosopher as well, that's how he drew these connections, was through philosophy. And ultimately, that still is not contradictory. I don't even know why it sounds like I'm explaining myself, but it does a little bit. And so I'll just stop right there. And where I'm getting at here is that the Many Masks of God was the one that I read. And that is what got me into the multiple references between these two books, or these two books and their authors, that got me into it. It was Joseph Campbell. Well, there was a constant reoccurring theme and repetition of Tristram and Isolde. The two different versions of it is there's a French version and there is another country's version, as well as Walden being mentioned very often as well. And the Walden being referenced multiple times, that was basically the one that took me a while to read. I actually read Tristram and Isolde first, then I read Walden, and that was very recently. I believe it was even last winter or something. But I have been pretty fortunate to find a decent copy of that had some footnotes on the side as well. There are footnotes that reference to where all of the origins of all of the stuff inside the story inside the book came from, because what Walden, Tristram and Isolde is a work of fiction. Walden is not. It is non-fiction. And everything in Walden that was written is literally a journal. It's written in that format, and that's exactly what it is it's a journal of Henry David Thoreau living on Walden Pond on the east coast of the United States, and then everything that, all the way down to where he would get his firewood and where he would go to the store and the names of the stores and general stores that he was purchasing things, where he was keeping in journal all record of all the how much everything costed, was in the footnotes. It was in the origins, and it's like an additional bibliography on the version that I had. So if you are interested in this and you want to check it out, make sure you check out that, you try to scout out that version of the book with the extended footnotes, as it has a lot more information on there for you. And especially if you're interested in doing homesteads. I know a lot of people are doing homesteads. I'm seeing this pop up a lot on my suggested feed, and I'm interacting with them. Well, not quite interacting, but I'm dropping comments and letting them know that I'm there. Can't always get an interaction or response from people nowadays. But I'm watching videos of people in homesteads, and there's one that I interacted with, so that's cool. But there's so many people doing homesteads. I was just looking at a short this morning of some guy that did a homestead, and he bought... It sounds very appealing and sensational the way that things are titled, and it's quite unfortunate that it has to be that way, as it turns people off, especially people who might have the opportunity to do that themselves, or be enticed to do that themselves. It's a huge turnoff the way that everything has to be sensational in order for it to be put out. But the video I watched this morning was, and it was still cool nonetheless. It was still pretty cool anyway, that the guy just like bought a shack or a trailer, and then it has everything all hooked up. It has all the hookups. Well, that's exactly what Walden is. Walden is a guy that did that in 1960 or something. No, 1930. This guy was doing this in like 1920, 1930, 1940. I don't have all the exact references, and you know what? I haven't actually even gotten the links down here, because as far as I'm concerned, nobody's even watching. So I don't know why I would go through that much work on the things that are most important too. I go through all the work with the networking and the music, where people can keep in touch and we can actually relay messages back and forth, and that actually contributes to something that I'm doing on a daily basis. But stuff like this, that is, as I said in the narrative and the introduction, this is still very sentimentally important. I can't find the heart or time or reason to add in the link where you can find the version of Walden I'm looking for. I can add Dracula, because I'm rereading a sample of that right now, and I can add that in. Joseph Campbell, I can find some links to that for you. But Walden, all these other things, there's Nibelungenlied on here, and there's Tristram and Isolde, and then I would just slap that shit together and then call that a complete episode. I don't think so. I might just catch myself red-handed, go ahead, put all the links for all these authors, all the links for all these classics, as there's only 6 in total anyway, and then my music goes on here, and then whatever artist that I want to add and the featured art that goes on here makes this a complete episode. And 15 minutes would be nice if I had the mind to just be focused and be mind centered on this. This would be a 15-minute episode, but now it has to be a little bit longer because I don't do all that. So, as I was saying, back with Walden, as I'm still on the first author. That's just all it is. The guy lived in a homestead, and what he wrote in there was all philosophical, very philosophical, and he quotes people that say a lot of wise words, so that's something that you want to go and check out. The next one is Bram Stoker, who wrote Dracula. He wrote a couple of other books like Snake's Pass, and that's about St. Patrick. As Bram Stoker is English or Irish. No, I think he's Irish. Well, anyway, he wrote Dracula, and it's one of the most popular. It's literally one of the most popular horror novels and acclaimed horror novels on the planet in the history of time. So you can be broke as shit and still have $3.99 to purchase this digital copy on the link I'm going to provide for you on here in the show notes. It's not available on screen right now, but it will be on the show notes for you. And that is for the reading digital version. That is, I'm not sure what the price is for the audiobook, but it should still take you to the audiobook too if you're just stuck on audiobooks right now and can't read a single page. That's fine too. We all know what Dracula's about, but I'm going to give you the rundown anyway. It's guys selling real estate, gets lured into just Castle Dracula's castle, where he's held captive. When he escapes, he goes and makes it home, and the guy sold him the house already, so they meet him at the house he sold him at and kill him. That's the end. The triumph over Dracula at the end of the story. Super big spoiler alert that I probably won't add in, but hey, whatever. You should have the mind to pause it if you don't want to hear the spoiler alert anyway. Anyway, that's not my fucking attitude. I don't know what the fuck got into me today. What the fuck is going on, man? Anyway, that's the second author. The third one's Joseph Campbell. That's going to be the links that I'm going to be... So the links I'm going to provide for you on that one are going to be some actual interviews and discussions that Joseph Campbell has with somebody that I haven't even watched yet, as it costs me a few loans and I only have a certain amount every month, so I can't bring myself to watch like 6 or 8 of these things. I can't spend 6 or 8 things just watching all Joseph Campbell. They're like an hour each on the app that I'm going to share the link on. So I'll be sharing the link to the app as well, where you can check this out. All you need is a library card, and then you will have access to the content on that author, Joseph Campbell, where you could probably also find his trilogy or quadrilogy that I mentioned as well. There's just these videos that I'm going to share with you to have you check those out instead. As for the Dracula, that's Google Play Books. Henry David Thoreau and Walden is going to be... I'll just pull something, whatever is the first one that pops up on Google Shopping when I type that in. It's no trouble at all for me. Literary classics are next up on this episode, and that is where we will start with Nibelungenlied. The link provided on the Nibelungenlied that I have is not for the book itself. It's actually going to take you to the summary, the book summary of mine that I created, and is available on Lion's Den Productions or Official Mickey Gemini YouTube channel. I'm not sure which one, but it's there. And in order to find the actual book, the PDF file link should also be on here as well. And right back at it after hearing some of the music that I made recently and have added into the show. We're gonna go over Nibelungenlied real quick. As I haven't actually any intention on doing what it's about on here, as well as the book summary, so you can go check it out yourself on the link provided. And I'll just leave it at it's a German literary classic from Germany. There is one misconception of mine, a personal misconception of mine I'd like to add in, just to get it out there, that when I first read the book, I actually thought that it had something to do with trolls and kind of like the Mines of Moria. Not trolls, but dwarves. I thought it had something to do with dwarves, like the Mines of Moria, Lord of the Rings type thing. As I think that's what the Nebelugans are. I think the Nebelugans are like dwarves or something like that. And it's still uncertain, as when I read it the last time, as opposed to the first time I read it. It seems more just of a love story of a guy. It's the main character is really the queen that seeks revenge on who killed her husband, and then starts a war because someone killed her husband. So she marries somebody else, and then you can basically choose your hero in that story. As both of the heroes and warriors that I would consider to be the heroes of the story, the heroes and warriors of the story, are both slain. Anyway, that's the Nibelungen Lied, and this next up that we have is the Mabinogion, where I actually might add in another clip here from having found this book after 10 years of having first discovered the Mabinogion, and also after 10 years of having, this is a personal journey of mine, okay? After personal things start coming in, I have to censor myself a little bit and cut myself off and just leave it as it's the Mabinogion, and it's an ancient Welsh tale that has a lot of following surrounding it. This is really cool. I want to try to capture this moment before I lose track of where I was on the story. The ancient tale of the Mabinogion, ancient Welsh version, translated by Lady Margaret Charlotte Guest, is really cool seeing this in the Project Gutenberg version, where 10 years ago I drove all the way to the largest metropolitan area to seek it out in the Irish American Heritage Center, like a whole building completely dedicated to Irish American culture. So this is really cool. 10 years later, still reading up on this marvelous piece of history. It's from Wales, and that is the land of the mighty. Wales and Scotland are considered both the land of the mighty. And fun fact is that their flag being, I'm actually going to add in the flags here, because this is always important when you're talking about ancient cultures and culture in general. You don't, it's not proper unless you have the flags. So this is Wales and the dragon, where their currency actually had dragons on them. And I accidentally added Nibelungen Lied as Wales. That's Germany. So the German flag goes there. Tristram and Isolde is up next, where we'll close off there, and that is France. As for the authors, I think I'll even add their flags too, because you got United States, England, or Ireland, and Joseph Campbell, United States. So there you have it, guys. With Tristram and Isolde closing off, you have a complete episode here covering famous authors and literary classics. As for this story, this is a huge one, as it's a love story about two individuals. That Nibelungen Lied being it's like a love triangle. Mabinogion is a series of stories with some love in there, as I still have not even completed it after discovering this book, and especially of it being a huge part of my own heritage a decade ago. This one's just a simple Romeo and Juliet style story, but it doesn't have obviously all that ungodly, unbearable Shakespearean connotations to it. It's very readable, and it's in fairy tale format, as there are dragons in Tristram and Isolde. Tristram is the man, Isolde is the woman. Tristram is a dragon slayer. He's a dragon slaying warrior, and he sent off into exile, and Isolde's with Isolde. And he says, "Wait here for me. I'll be right back." So he goes and leaves Isolde in the bramble, in the bushes, in the bramble. The link on the description here that you can see. You're not gonna type in this link here, but you can click on it in the description. Hopefully, if my account doesn't need to be verified or something like that. But it'll take you to the rundown of this that I also have in Lion's Den Productions YouTube channel, where it's got the pictures of the PDF file. I'm also going to try to make sure I add in the PDF file link so that you can download that yourself as well. When you go through me, it makes everything easier. It makes everything more entertaining. I hope that it is much more entertaining than you scouting out all of this stuff yourself. And it's, without a shadow of a doubt, way more entertaining than a robot or some AI telling you what all this shit is. So you can check out the video and look at the pictures on there. It's really cool. You can see the dragon, you can see Isolde in the bramble waiting for Tristram. But Tristram, this is also a love triangle. It's just not involving the female in the story invoking war because of it. Instead, she just wants to seek regular revenge, not sending whole armies off to kill each other. Other than that, guys, I think that is about all that I can do for this episode, really. And to cap off, I'm just going to make sure that I thank you guys for watching, liking, sharing, subscribing, and I'll make sure I have some cool art and some cool artist spotlight for you. With that as the closing of this episode, I bid you adieu. This is Mickey Gemini, Vault of Doom Podcast.